It's been a while since January 6th, and we've talked about it many times on the show. You might think that a lot has been revealed, but remember, there are books to be written by journalists, so they sit on stuff constantly. We've got the January 6th commission, which theoretically is supposed to be able to find something if literally anyone they subpoena ever complies with their subpoenas. But that said, if the second of those two possibilities for finding out more about the 6th doesn't come through, at least the first seems like it is, because we've got some revelations for you. The first is this: on New Year's Eve, Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff at that point, emailed a memo to a top aide to Vice President Mike Pence outlining how the vice president could overturn Biden's November electoral win. And I know what you're thinking. No, wait, we already knew about this, all the stuff with Pence and all that. No, this is a different kooky, harebrained, whack job idea of how they could stop Biden from becoming president. Previously we have the Eastman memo, which we found out more about. It fits on a post-it note basically, and it gives you a 7-point plan to ending democracy. This is a different one. Okay, so in the memo, and this is according to, by the way, as a lot of these things are, Jonathan Karl of ABC News, his book is coming out soon. He says Jenna Ellis listed, so it's Jenna Ellis. So right off the bat, buckle up. Anyway, she listed a clear strategy for Pence to contest the results, which would have involved the vice president on January 6th sending back the electoral votes of 6 competitive states that Trump said he won. So you can already see that there's a little bit of substantive overlap with the Eastman idea, but this is slightly different. It involves a time limit. The plan outlined that Pence would then issue a deadline of 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 15th for states to return an updated vote total. According to Ellis's plan, if any state legislature failed to provide vote totals by the deadline, then electoral votes would not be open and counted from that particular state. In such a case, neither Biden nor Trump would have compiled a majority of votes, which Ellis said would mean that Congress should vote by state delegation, a move that would have aided Trump since Republicans control the majority of congressional delegations. So the particular mechanism for it, and certainly the timeline, is different than the Eastman memo, but some of the broad strokes are similar. It involves Mike Pence taking his always, as a VP, ceremonial role of certifying the results, which means looking at a pile of them and saying, good job, that is all he's supposed to do. Then something happens, and in the end, Republicans who control a majority of state delegations would have just chosen Trump as their president. There would have been not even a pretense of anything even distantly related to democracy in any of this, but Jenna Ellis thought that it could work. And they were doing a lot of pressure. This is a full court press on Mike Pence to get him to go along with this. On January 1st, a day after that memo was sent, Trump's aide John McEntee relayed another memo to Mark Short, Pence's chief of staff, entitled, quote, "Jefferson used his position as VP to win," which isn't true. It's not historically accurate, but they thought it was convincing. So look, this is very similar, as we said, in some ways to the Eastman thing. But the reason that I think it's important that we know about this is you need to know how broad this effort was. That it involved multiple different aides, multiple legal representatives, as well as the chief of staff himself. This is Mark Meadows communicating directly to Mike Pence. Now, Mark Meadows, you might remember, is one of the guys who, after Steve Bannon, defied the subpoena of the January 6th commission. And as of yesterday, when Steve Bannon had turned himself in, some of the congressional Democrats said, we are preparing the same thing for Mark Meadows if necessary, if we actually need that. And so, that's useful to have. Mark Meadows was chief of staff. He talked quite a bit with Trump. It would be very interesting to hear what he thought was going on in those weeks. But if Mark Meadows himself was involved in the effort to pressure Mike Pence to end democracy in America, all the more reason that we should have his testimony and potentially documents as well. Because Karl is talking here, about Mark Meadows having done that. At least as of what I've seen, we don't have the actual text of that memo. We don't have the responses that might have come from either Pence or one of his representatives, but all of that conceivably does exist. If it doesn't, then that's probably breaking the law. They're not supposed to be deleting those sorts of messages, but we'll have to see. And why does this matter? because this was the strategy, not just for the legal representatives, the aides, or even the chief of staff. Trump was involved in this. And he was trying for close to 2 months before January 6th to get people fired up for the possibility that all of this is gonna come down to Pence and he's gonna be the one. You might recall, we covered it at the time, when Senators then Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler were running in their runoffs for Georgia Senate. There was a rally that Trump went to, and supposedly it was about them, but Trump didn't really care about that. And he said at one point, I hope Mike Pence comes through for us. I have to tell you, I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much. Now, if I had to choose between the then president of the United States talking about how he'd like me less if I didn't do some nonsensical thing that has no relationship to the Constitution and ends democracy in America, I would prefer that to him sending his acolytes screaming for my blood through the halls of Congress. But remember, this is one of the first steps. Before we got to Trump doing the speech and sending people to the Capitol, months before he would sit down with Karl and defend those people who were calling for the blood of the vice president, this is the form that pressure came in. And it looks honestly like as a country, we've decided that, we didn't love it. We would prefer not to have the president doing that sort of thing, but there will be no consequences. This might be our last chance as a country to second guess that, to get a second opinion on whether insurrections are bad and there should be some sort of consequences. We'll see. Mark Meadows is going to be called in to testify. We will see if they're able to do that, if they actually press the legal case against him. But he clearly does know something at least about this effort to pressure Pence. And it's even easy to conceive potentially that he did this himself, or it was just a result of Jenna Ellis pressuring him. But it's possible that him sending that to Pence came about as a result of conversations that he had with Donald Trump. It'll be very interesting to find that out.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.